don't know if I'm overreacting, broken, or finally seeing things clearly for the first time. I just know that something inside me snapped, and I'm not sure we're going to come back from it. My boyfriend proposed with his ex's ring. Not a ring his ex once tried on, not a similar style, not a family piece that happened to be used before. The same ring he gave to his ex when he asked her to marry him. And when I found out and tried to talk about how it made me feel, he spent more time explaining why I was wrong to care than acknowledging why it hurt. I've never felt so stupid and small in my life. For context, we've been together a little over 3 years. I'm 29, he's 32. We met through work, but in different departments, so it never got messy professionally. He was funny, attentive, and honestly, after a long streak of bad dates and half relationships, he felt like stability. He had an ex he'd been engaged to before me. He told me about her very early on. They were together for about 4 years, engaged for 1. It ended badly, according to him. She left, moved out while he was at work, took her stuff, and didn't give him proper closure. At first, I was sympathetic. Breakups are hard, people handle pain badly. I only ever heard his side, obviously, but I tried not to hold his past against him. He said he'd been ready for a future, and she bled him dry emotionally and financially, then bailed. I filed that away under his past and tried not to make it my problem. He mentioned a few times that he'd lost a lot on that failed engagement. Deposits, plans, money. It came up when we talked vaguely about marriage and weddings, like his cautionary tale. He'd say stuff like, "I'm not doing a huge wedding again. It's a scam. Rings are a waste of money. It's just a rock. I'm not going into debt for a party just so people can judge the decorations." I actually agreed with some of it. I don't care about a big wedding either. I'm not into huge diamond flexing. I used to tell my friends that if I ever got engaged, I'd be happy with something simple and meaningful. The important part for me was always the choice, the intention, the thought behind it. I wish I'd been more specific. Fast forward to a few months ago. We'd been living together for about a year and a half. Our families had met. My friends liked him. His friends liked me. We'd been through job stress, family drama, small arguments, all the normal couple stuff. Nothing that made me doubt us. I wasn't in a rush for a ring, but it felt like we were heading that way. He'd joke about someday, one day when we're married, our kids, that kind of thing. Casual future talk. Around my birthday, his behavior shifted a little bit. He was being mysterious with his phone in a way that felt more planning something than cheating. He'd whisper with his sister on the phone and switch topics when I walked in. He'd disappear for random errands and come back looking smug. I assumed he was planning a proposal. I never said it out loud, but I think we both knew that we both knew. Part of me was excited. Part of me was terrified. Not in a bad way, but just in a holy crap, this is real kind of way. He ended up proposing on a weekend trip. It wasn't some over-the-top thing. We went away to a cabin for 2 nights, nothing fancy but cozy. He cooked dinner the first night. We opened a bottle of wine, music, candles, all that. It felt romantic in a low-key way. At one point, he started acting weirdly nervous, dropped a fork, laughed too loudly at nothing. Then he told me to wait here and disappeared into the bedroom. I already knew. He came back, stood in front of me, said some sweet things about how he couldn't imagine life without me, how I'd been his anchor, his partner, blah, blah, blah. I barely heard half of it because my heart was pounding out of my chest. Then he got down on one knee and pulled out a small box. I honestly don't remember what he said when he opened it. I just remember the ring. It was simple. Gold band, single diamond. Not massive, not tiny. Tasteful. Classic. I liked it. It looked like something I would have picked. Nothing flashy, something you wear every day without feeling like your hand is screaming for attention. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I was crying, he was crying, we hugged, we kissed, we did all the cliche engagement stuff. Took a few photos, sent some to close friends and family. His mom cried on FaceTime. My best friend screamed in my ear. In that moment, the ring felt perfect. Not because of the metal or the stone, but because it was ours. At least I thought it was. The first gut punch came 2 weeks later. We went to his parents' house for dinner, kind of an unofficial congratulations on the engagement thing. His mom was excited, his dad was more reserved but kind. There was champagne. They asked a million questions. We talked dates, vague ideas, no real plans yet. At one point, his mom asked to see the ring up close. I took it off and handed it to her. She looked at it for a second, and something in her face changed. Just a tiny flicker. It was quick. If I hadn't been watching her, I might have missed it. But I saw her eyebrows twitch, a little tension in her mouth. Then she smiled too widely. "It's lovely," she said. "Very classic." She handed it back and changed the subject abruptly. It was weird enough that I noticed, but not enough to make a scene. File it under odd and keep moving. Later that night, when we were getting ready for bed back at home, I asked him casually, "Hey, has your mom seen this ring before? She looked at it kind of funny." He shrugged and said, "I don't know, maybe she was just emotional." I let it go. The second gut punch came from his sister. His sister and I get along pretty well. We're not best friends, but we're comfortable with each other. She came over a few days later with a bottle of wine and engagement flowers, which was sweet. We were sitting on the couch talking about random stuff, and of course the ring came up. She asked to see it. I held out my hand.
She stared at it in a way that lingered a little too long, like her mom did. Then she looked up at me with a strange expression. "Did he pick this one himself?" she asked. I thought it was a weird question. I laughed. "I hope so. I mean, that's what he told me." She gave me a tight little smile and said, "Yeah, okay. It's pretty. Very familiar style, that's all." I asked what she meant, but she just shook her head and changed the subject. That sinking feeling started in my stomach and didn't go away.
I tried to push it down. I didn't want to be the paranoid, insecure fiancé who invented problems. But once you get that seed of doubt, it's like a splinter under the skin of your brain. You can't stop poking at it. A few days later, it got worse. One of his old friends came over. I'll call him Mark. I don't like him very much. He has that never really grew up energy. Loud, makes inappropriate jokes, drinks too much at every event. We were sitting at the table, eating takeout, catching up. At some point, the engagement came up again. My fiancé made some joke about me finally saying yes, and everyone laughed. Mark leaned across the table, grabbed my hand to look at the ring, and let out this low whistle. "Wow," he said. "She really resurrected it, huh?" I blinked. "Resurrected what?" He looked at my fiancé with a half-drunk grin and said, "Man, I remember when my fiancé kicked him under the table. Hard enough that Mark yelped and dropped my hand. Ow, dude, what the?" My fiancé cut him off, voice a little too loud. "Shut up, you're drunk." The room went awkwardly silent for a few seconds. My face was burning. My heart was pounding again, but not in a good way this time. I stared between them and said, very quietly, "What was he about to say?" "Nothing," he said, too quickly. "He's being an idiot." Mark, who is many things but not subtle, looked between us and then mumbled, "Whatever, forget it," and chugged the rest of his drink. We changed the subject. The night went on. I went through the motions. As soon as he left, I asked directly, "What did he mean by resurrected it?" I asked. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said, "He's just being an asshole. You know how he is. Don't let him get in your head." I pushed. "Is this ring new?" Of course it's a ring," he said, deflecting. "Rings exist. They don't just get born yesterday." "You know what I mean," I said. "Did you buy this for me?" Or did it exist before that? He paused, just for a second. Then he shrugged. Does it matter? He said. That was not the answer I expected. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time I looked at my hand, the ring didn't look the same. It wasn't glowing with the same warmth as the day he proposed. It was suddenly cold, heavy, suspicious. The next day, while he was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through his old photos. He has a folder on his computer labeled Old Stuff. I've seen it before. It's where he keeps random pictures from years ago. Friends, trips, parties, old roommates, old cars. Normal history. I opened it, feeling like I was doing something wrong, even though he's never said it was off limits. There were tons of photos. I scrolled back a few years. Then I saw her. His ex. I'd seen one or two older pictures of her before, nothing dramatic, but this folder had more. Them at parties, them on holiday, her sitting on his lap, them at a restaurant, normal couple photos. And then I saw it. A picture of them at what looked like a fancy rooftop dinner. She was dressed up, he was in a button-down shirt, she was holding up her left hand, laughing at the camera, wearing a ring. The same ring, same gold band, same shape, same stone, same setting. My breath caught in my throat. I zoomed in to make sure I wasn't imagining it. The details were a little blurry, but it was obvious enough. It wasn't just similar style. This was it. He had proposed to her with this ring, and now he had proposed to me with the same one. I just stared at the screen for a long time. I felt sick. Not because jewelry is sacred or because diamonds have souls, but because of what it represented. He could have told me. He could have said, "Hey, I bought this ring years ago and I don't want to waste it. Are you okay with that?" We could have had a conversation. Maybe I would have said no. Maybe I would have said yes. But at least it would have been honest. Instead, he let me think this was chosen for me, for us, for our story. When in reality, I was the second person he looked at and thought, this will do. He came out of the shower while I was still at the computer. I must have looked guilty as hell because he immediately asked, "What's wrong?" I turned the laptop toward him. "Is this the same ring?" I asked. His expression went through about 3 different stages in 2 seconds. Surprise, recognition, then annoyance. "Why are you going through my old photos?" he asked. "Is it the same ring?" I repeated. He exhaled loudly and rubbed his face. "Yes, it's the same ring. Happy now?" My heart sank. Not because of the answer, but because of how he gave it to me. Like I'd forced him into a corner, like I was being unreasonable for wanting to know. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because I knew you'd react like this," he snapped. "Like what? Like someone who thought her engagement ring was hers and not leftovers from the last attempt?" He rolled his eyes. "It's not leftovers. Jesus. It's a ring. I paid a ton of money for it. I'm not made of cash. I wasn't going to throw it away just because she turned out to be a flake." I took the ring off my finger. That simple act made the air in the room feel heavier. "You gave me the same ring you gave to someone else," I said. "The same exact one. And you didn't think that mattered enough to mention?" "It doesn't matter," he said. "You're making it matter." "It matters to me," I said quietly. He shook his head. "You're letting some stupid romanticized movie bullshit ruin something that should be simple. It's a symbol. That's it. You're the one I want to marry. That's what counts." I looked at the ring in my hand. "It was also the symbol of you wanting to marry her," I said. "You don't see how that complicates things at all?" "She said no," he shot back. Over the next hour, the conversation turned into this weird, exhausting loop. I tried to explain why it hurt. I told him it felt secondhand, recycled, like I was stepping into someone else's failed story, like I was a replacement, not a choice. He kept insisting it was practical, logical, that it made no sense to waste a perfectly good ring, that it wasn't about her,
It was about not throwing away something expensive. He said jewelry doesn't have feelings, that I was projecting, that I was making up a problem. At one point, he actually said, if you weren't so obsessed with the idea that everything has to be special, this wouldn't be an issue. I want to be very clear. I'm not a luxury princess. I don't wear designer anything. I buy clothes on sale. I've never cared about the size of the stone, the brand, the Instagram factor. If he'd proposed with a simple band he bought from a small local shop, I would have been happy. It wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that he'd proposed this way before and didn't think I deserved something that wasn't tied to someone else's, and he didn't tell me. He said, look, I'm the one who got screwed over the first time. I lost deposits, I lost time, I lost money. I finally get a chance to do this again, and you want me to feel guilty because I didn't burn everything from the past like some dramatic ritual? I said, you didn't have to burn it, but you also didn't have to pretend it was new. He shot back, I never said it was new, you just assumed. That line made me pause. Technically, he was right. He'd never actually said, I just bought this. He'd never claimed it was brand new, but he'd also never said, by the way, this used to be hers. He'd let me build my own story around it and then blamed me for feeling betrayed when I learned the reality. That's what gaslighting feels like, being told your expectations were wrong when they were never corrected in the first place. I asked him one last question that night. I asked, if you knew for a fact that when I found out I'd be hurt, why did you do it anyway? He hesitated. He said, because I thought you'd get over it. Because it's not rational to throw away a ring over someone who isn't in our life anymore. Because feelings change. You'd come around. In other words, he knew it would bother me and decided that my discomfort was an acceptable price to pay for not having to spend money or effort on a new symbol. He bet on me eventually complying. And that broke something in me, more than the ring itself. The days after that conversation were tense. I didn't wear the ring. He noticed, obviously. He'd look at my bare hand and go quiet. He stopped talking about wedding plans. He stopped making little future jokes. He was sullen, short-tempered, distant. Then the guilt started. Not his, mine. He never apologized for not telling me. He never said, I get why this hurts you. Instead, he made it about how I was punishing him. He'd say things like, I tried to do something nice and you turned it into drama. Most people would be happy just to be engaged. You're sabotaging our future over something that doesn't matter. If you tell your friends about this, they'll laugh at you for being shallow. He also kept repeating over and over, I chose you. Isn't that part that matters? And for a while, I started to believe him. I started thinking, maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe I was lucky to have someone who wanted to marry me at all. Maybe I was ungrateful. That's the part I hate most, how quickly I turned on myself instead of him. Then something shifted. I told one friend. I wasn't even going to. His voice was in my head, saying they'd think I was shallow. But it was eating me alive, so I finally texted my closest friend and asked if I could call. I told her everything, the ring, the photo, his reaction, the conversation. She went completely quiet. Then she said, I would never be able to wear that again. Hearing someone else say it out loud so firmly shook something loose in me. I asked, do you really think it's that bad? She said, he had the right to keep the ring if he wanted. He had the right to not throw it away. But you had the right to know, and he took that from you. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up. He took my choice away. If he'd told me the truth, I might have decided that I didn't care enough to make it an issue, or I might have asked to reset the stone in a new band, or I might have chosen a simple cheap ring instead.
There were so many options between same ring, no disclosure, and throw it in the ocean. But he chose the one where I didn't get a say. A few nights later, we tried to talk again. He brought it up this time. "So, are we done with the ring tantrum yet?" he asked, half joking, half resentful. That phrasing alone told me everything about where his head was. "No," I said, "we're not done." He sighed dramatically. "What do you want from me?" I took a breath. I said, "I want you to understand why this hurts. I want you to stop telling me my feelings are wrong just because they're inconvenient. I want you to care that I feel like a second choice, not call it irrational." He said, "I've told you 100 times you're not a second choice. You're the one making it about her. She's gone. She doesn't matter." I said, "She mattered enough that you kept her ring for the next woman. She mattered enough that you were willing to attach me to the symbol of your last failed engagement without telling me." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "So what? You want me to go buy a new one? Will that make you happy? Will that magically fix everything?" I thought about it. "No," I said honestly, "because even if you did, I'd always know you didn't want to. You only did it because I forced the issue. You don't actually see what's wrong. You just want me to shut up." For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. He just stared at me. Then he said something that knocked the air out of me. He said, "I thought you were more mature than this." There it was. Not, "I hear you." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I can see why it hurt you." Just disappointment that I wasn't swallowing my discomfort to make his life easier. That night, I slept in the other room. Not because I wanted to make some dramatic statement, but because I needed space from the weight of his expectations, from the ring sitting on the table, from feeling like I was failing some kind of cool girl test. I lay there thinking, if this is how he handles something that hurts me but makes sense to him, what happens when the conflict is bigger? What happens when we disagree about kids, money, life decisions? Will he always treat my feelings like something to manage, minimize, reason out of existence? In the morning, he acted like nothing happened. He made coffee, asked if I wanted toast, kissed my forehead mechanically. There was this underlying vibe of, we're done with that now, right? I wasn't. I don't know exactly when the decision formed, but a few days later I realized I was done being engaged. We hadn't told everyone yet, just close friends and family. We hadn't booked anything, we hadn't put down deposits. The train had started moving, but it hadn't left the station. I looked at the ring on the table one morning. Then I looked at him asleep in bed. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt a kind of numb clarity. If I stayed, I'd spend the rest of my life explaining my feelings to someone who treated them like inconveniences. If I married him, every time I looked at my hand, I'd see a secret I had to dig out, a truth I had to confront alone, a moment where he decided saving money mattered more than my trust. So I waited until we both had a free evening. No work stress, no outside obligations. I asked if we could talk. He rolled his eyes slightly and said, "Not this again." "Yes," I said, "this again." I won't write out the full conversation because it was long and messy, but the core is this. I told him I couldn't be engaged to him right now, that the ring situation had shown me we had a deeper incompatibility in how we handle respect and feelings, that I didn't trust him to be honest when it might cost him something. He told me I was throwing away a good relationship over sentimentality. He told me I was sabotaging my own happiness. He told me everyone has baggage and I was naive to think I'd find someone with a perfectly clean slate. I told him I didn't need someone with no past. I needed someone who didn't try to repurpose the past and sell it to me as our future. He asked if this meant we were breaking up. I told him I didn't know yet, that I needed space, that at the very least, the engagement was off. He asked for the ring back. I picked it up,
held it for a moment, and handed it to him. "Just think of it as still being on hold," he said, bitterly. "Maybe you'll come to your senses." That told me a lot, too. Right now I'm staying at a friend's place. We haven't officially broken up, but I think we both feel the shift. The easy future we talked about is gone. What's left is heavy and complicated. He's texted me a few times. Some messages are hurt and sad, others are defensive.
He keeps saying versions of, "It's just a ring. We can get a different one if it means that much. Why are you blowing this up?" Not once has he said, "I shouldn't have hidden it from you." Not once has he said, "I get why you feel secondhand." Not once has he said, "I'm sorry." And that, more than the reused ring, is why I think this might really be the end. Because the ring is just an object. But the way he handled it, that's who he is when I'm hurt, and he doesn't agree with the reason. I don't want to build a life with someone who treats my pain like a negotiation. So yeah, he proposed using his ex's ring. He told me I was irrational for caring. He hoped I'd come around. Instead, I took it off. And I'm starting to realize that maybe walking away now is the most respectful thing I can do for myself. Even if it means I have to start over at 29. Even if it means people will say I overreacted. Even if it means letting go of the future I thought I was stepping into when I said yes in that cabin. Because I'd rather be alone than engage to a man who looks at something that hurt me deeply and says, "It's just a piece of metal. Get over it."